Happy Thursday. It is time for Event Domination. We go live every single Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time talking about events. I've scaled my conference up, learned a lot of lessons along the way. We've done some things the right way and done some things along the wrong way and had to learn how to do them a whole lot better. And today, I am going to be very curious to see where my stool ends up by the end of this episode, because this stool is absolute garbage and I can feel it shrinking as we go. So I might be a lot lower by the time this episode finishes. Okay, cool. Robbie, you might have to lift me up after. All right, so today I'm going to be sharing how to build an effective event timeline. As with events, there are a million different pieces that we have to organize somehow into some type of usable timeline and scope of work so we can be organized. And over here on my team, that would be Katie, our director of operations. And she's really, really, really good at doing this type of stuff. With me, honestly, I kind of struggle with it because I'm like the vision kind of person, the sales-oriented person. Katie's very much a detail person. So if you cross her and you don't get something done, she's on your case. She is the boss when it comes to organization and how to actually build out these effective timelines. So a lot of this stuff I'm stealing from Katie because that is Katie's domain. Hi, Katie, if you're watching. When we start approaching timelines, right? It's important. We want to draw a linear line right here. So it's we've got today, so we'll call this point 0, and then we've got we'll call it E day, event day. Okay, then we've got this huge timeline. Now, a very common question we get from people is, okay, well, how much time do I need to plan? And with events, once you do some large conferences or even workshops in general, you're going to learn very, very quickly that time in events is your number one enemy. You never have enough time. Even with us, we've got a team that runs this stuff. You never have enough time. So for us, we try to plan, or we start planning 14 months before our event. 14 months. So we're already planning next year before this current year even happens, right? And I liken the example to a cruise ship. We are a cruise ship now because we're so large. It takes us a long time to turn. Our first year, we had to be like a speedboat because we didn't have that infrastructure. We didn't have any of that stuff. So we had to be a lot more nimble, but now we're like a cruise ship, and cruise ships take a long time to turn. So you need to give yourself enough time. But when somebody comes in with the conference accelerator, if they're looking for help scaling, so maybe they're running a 300 person event. Actually, this morning, we were on a call with somebody, they're running a 300 person event. They want to scale up to, 1,000 people and really make a bigger splash. They're going to need at least 10 to 12 months. Now, 12 months is ideal, but 10 to 12 months is generally what you need. So this timeline is going to encompass, let's call it a 12-month cycle for an event. Now, obviously, there's nuance, and we're actually working with an event now that's coming up in about 6.5 months, but they're experienced and know what they're doing, and we're coming in and tweaking and helping them adjust their sponsorship systems, ticket systems, that type of thing. Okay, so 0 to E-Day, 12 months. What do we have to do? Well, the very first thing we have to do is we need to figure out our venue. And the thing you're going to learn as you grow bigger and bigger is the bigger the venue, the less options you have. So you have to secure this stuff up front. So with us, we take up hundreds of thousands of square feet at MTCC, and that's a prime location. There's events that will book out that venue 2-3 years in advance. And plus, when you get to a certain size, there's only a handful of places in the metro area that can hold your event, right? When we're talking thousands and thousands of people with rigging requirements, that type of thing. But if you're running a smaller workshop, maybe 300 people, 200 people, 100 people, you have a lot more selection. But like I said, the bigger you go, the more you have to be on the ball with this, because they'll get scooped up. So you have to figure out your venue first. The other thing you have to do is you have to do data collection, because our approach, we follow a data-driven model, a data-driven approach, meaning we just don't guess when it comes to building events. I remember when I first launched my event, I knew nothing about events. All I knew is the events that I had attended, they left something to be desired. I didn't enjoy going to them. So I wanted to run an event that was better. Best thing I ever did, I went to the marketplace and I asked a lot of questions and got to learn what people are really looking for in that industry when they go to an event. What are the big problems they have? Once you have that, now you can start building your event from what the market actually wants. You're not just guessing. So many events, they'll grow and they get stuck at 300, 400, 500 people. I call that the no man's land of events, because you're too big to be small, but you're too small to be big. And you run into revenue issues there, and you don't have the team and the infrastructure because the event can't support it. That's where events get stuck. And that's where a lot of events we work with Conference Accelerator, that's where they come to us, right? Because now we can come in and then help them out and install our systems and get them over that hump. But it all comes down to data. We have to build an event that is scalable and sellable. So we need to do that data stuff. So you'll notice at this point, I'm not talking about sponsorship sales. I'm not talking about ticket sales. I'm not even talking about speakers yet. We do not select speakers until we have the data, because we want to know what speakers are going to hit. Now, we've made mistakes with speakers in the past. Generally speaking, though, we're pretty bang on with our keynotes and the main speakers that drive, because we have the data to back it up, right? Once in a while, we'll have somebody that doesn't really hit, it happens, right? Like we always want to improve through surveys, but you want to make sure the core roster that you have is going to hit, and that's going to make your event sellable. Okay, so it's data. So we've got the venue, we've got the data. Now we have to start pulling together the building blocks of your event. And what's this going to look like? You're going to look for your first sponsor, right? Then you're going to look for your keynote speaker, right? And then you're going to look at, well, here, let me pause there. So the very first thing, and I'm going to treat this as a brand new event, right? The very first thing you want to do is what I call gravitational pull, okay? So you want to draw out like a little solar system, right? You got the sun in the middle, and then you got all the planets that orbit around it. You want to create an event that's actually going to pull people into your orbit around it and create that buzz. And that's going to make it so much easier to sell both on the sponsorship side and on the ticket sales side, plus attract speakers that actually want to show up. So what you need is you need to have that mass, generate that mass as quickly as possible. Oh, do we have a question there, Remy? No, we're good? Okay, cool. Right, you want to build that mass as quickly as possible. So the very first thing you want is you want to get a main key sponsor that people will recognize the name. Because if that sponsor is associated with your event, that gives your event credibility, especially as a first-year event. And you also want to nail your keynote speaker. I've seen events where the keynote speaker was not the right fit for that audience and the event fizzled. And it goes back to data collection. If you do the data now with us, we have very specific things we're looking for. We have very specific questions and all that type of stuff to figure out. We have a whole process and system we use to select our keynote speakers, because we want to make sure, we want to know for sure that they hit, right? So if we follow that approach, we can select a keynote speaker that we know is going to resonate with the audience, that we know is going to help sell tickets and create that buzz and make that event special. So once we get the keynote speaker and the sponsor, now we have to build out those processes, because if you're a brand new event, you're not going to have a fancy pitch deck. You're not going to have any of that stuff, but it's so important to get that core mass immediately. So what I did in the middle of the pandemic, when nobody should be planning events except a crazy guy, I went out, got our keynote speaker. I leveraged that to get the first sponsor, and then I had the venue, the only venue that would let us in the building because everything was locked down. That was my core gravitational pull, and that started pulling everything in. Once we had that figured out, we're going to go for our other speakers. Now you'll notice I'm not even selling tickets at this point. I'm still building, right? So we call this the build it phase. Right? Now I'm going to leverage the sponsor, the keynote, the venue to get my other speakers interested. So what I did was we had Kevin O'Leary the first year. So what I did is I went out, I knew some speakers who I thought that would be a good fit. I said, hey, listen, like I'm running an event with Kevin O'Leary, blah, blah, blah. Like, would you possibly be interested in speaking on stage? Great. Got a lot of interest there, right? Because I had the sponsor in place. I had the keynote in place. It's tangible. If you just approach speaker and say, hey, listen, I want to run this event, I'm planning it right now, there's nothing real. You can't touch it. But when you have that core set already, it makes approaching the speakers so much better. Plus, you have your keynote already in place. That gives you a lot of credibility with those speakers. Now, after you have your speakers, now you can focus on sponsorship. And you're going to have your deck with all your stats that you need from your data-driven research right here. So you're going to load that up with stats, and there's a very specific way that we approach sponsorship. Now, with sponsorship, you're going to create lists, your outreach list for sponsorship. You're going to create your scripts, all of that stuff that you need to effectively do sponsorship. Once you've done that, you're going to have you're going to create your web funnels. And here, let me do this. Web funnels, scripts, ads, creative. And again, with your ads and your creative, it all comes back to the data you collected. So this is huge. I should put like 5 stars around data, right? We can't just guess. Web funnels, all that, because now we're building out the sell it. So we build it and then we sell it. So we do this. Now we're starting to build out the marketing. We have the ads that we're doing. We have the scripts. We start, now we have a ticket sales team. So we start building out the training and the processes for that. And same thing with sponsorship. Now we have a sponsorship team. We have the scripts and processes. But if you're a brand new event, you're going to want to do this. Like you're going to have to do this stuff on your own. Like my first year, I did a lot of the sponsorship calls. I was even selling tickets, right? You do what you have to do to figure it out. Now, the benefit is we've already done this stuff and we can just parachute and install our proven systems already into your event. So you don't have to go through the 3 years of learning pains, right? We can just be like, hey, we tried 20 different ways. 19 of them didn't work. Here's the way that works for these reasons. Just do this. It makes it so much easier, right? And that applies for sponsorship, operation, like everything, ticket sales, marketing, whatever. So now we figure this out. Now we actually have to start planning the actual fulfillment, right? Because now we have do it. And everything goes hand in hand. So in the sell it phase, we're really working on call quality, right? If we have people on the phone, performance, ad performance. Now, at the same time, if we have like parallel, we're starting to plan AV and production. And this is one of the banes of Katie's existence because you have to set up the room or the venue, whatever it is. You have to set it up. You have to deal with fire codes. You have to look at rigging points, and rigging's how you hang things from the ceiling. If you're doing that, we have this huge 180-foot screen we've used the past couple of years. We will probably change it up for next year, but like that takes a lot of planning and effort. So you have to start this process well in advance so you know. What's going to happen is the venue is going to have issues with any plan you come up with. The fire marshal is going to have plans, and then AV is going to tell you, well, like fire marshal wants it this way, venue wants it this way, but it doesn't work for this reason, and this reason. So you got to go back to the drawing board all over again and start from scratch. So you want to start venue layout. So you're doing layout, floor plan, flow of traffic. How do people come in? How do you keep them in one spot? All of those things, planning. So you start that well in advance. After that, you're going to have renderings, drawings. You have to all that type of stuff. Plus, you have to figure out capacity. So with us, we run breakout sessions on the Friday with our conference. We run into big issues with, okay, well, we have this going on in this room, this going on in this room, this going on in this room. This room A has to be laid out theater style. This room has to be laid out with rounds. But then this room doesn't hold the capacity for these people for this thing. And then we got to switch around. It is a total nightmare. So you want to front load this as much as possible, because once you get into the do it phase, it is, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. It is a mess. And thankfully, Katie has to deal with it. So we got AV production, all of that type of stuff. Once you figure that out, now you're going to do run of show. Run of show is something I underestimated. So our first year, we actually hired somebody to create this for us. And then we had to, it wasn't working out, let's call it. And a lot of stuff that was supposed to be done never ended up being done. We underestimated the importance of run of show. Run of show is essentially what happens every single minute at your event. Why? AV production needs to know that, so they know when to play music, what video goes on the board. Even if you're running a workshop, your sound technician guy in the background has to know, well, what mics need to be on, what stage, what videos to queue up, when to play music, when not to play music. You need to have a run of show. Plus, your speakers need to know, any vendors you have need to know, like you need to know, hey, well, from this time I'm talking. So when you're planning out your content, everything has to be dialed in. Now, your run of show has to be flexible, because with any live event, there's always issues that go wrong behind the scenes. Let me just name a couple that we have dealt with. We had a speaker where his driver forgot to pick him up. And so he had to drive himself to the venue. You don't expect that. So you're on stage, you get a message, oh, so-and-so's driver forgot to pick them up, stall. Okay, so now your run of show has to be adjusted. We've had passport issues and customs issues flying people in. Unexpected, they're on their private jet, they come in, now they're delayed. So now you have to stall. There's so many issues that come up with live shows. So you have to be very, very flexible, and the best run of shows leave wiggle room and they're not too rigid. So you've got your run of show laid out, but then you also have thought about plan B and plan C. So now what we do is we just figure out, okay, well, this is the run of show. This is in a perfect world. We know that the perfect world will never exist. This is what we're going to do if this happens at this case. This is the plan B if this happens at that case. So you've got, your 4 or 5 different plans depending on what happens. Okay. Now, the other thing you have to figure out is, as going back to the web funnels and scripts and everything, you have to figure out registration. So what is your registration process for moving whatever number of people you have into your event? Our second year, we had an expensive registration system that did not perform on the day. And so we had thousands of people that we had to bring into the venue, but the registration system crashed. It was a total nightmare. And so you always have to have backups. So I mentioned the backups with run of show. You have to have backups with registration. So now we plan for the registration system to crash. And so we have the old-fashioned paper, because you have to expect that it's not going to work. We were caught our second year because we're like, oh, well, we're paying this money for this platform. It should be really, really good. It wasn't. So you have to have those backups in place. Now, you'll also want to think about what data are you collecting during the registration process, because for food and beverage, so I'll put food and beverage, dietary restrictions, allergies, like you want to collect this stuff up front, because what happens is, let's say you have 500 people, 300 people, 1,000 people, 2,000, 3,000 people. If you don't collect that at the point of registration, Now you have to chase and chase and chase and chase people. And that's just going to be so many man hours that could be spent doing better stuff. So the big lesson we've learned with F&B, food and beverage, and like that type of stuff, even breakout session selection, do that when they get their ticket, because you're never going to get them back on the phone. Or if you do, it's going to take a lot of effort. So it's far better to do it during the registration process. And this is where you have to focus on a smooth registration process where you're collecting everything that you need. Okay. Now, this brings us to the actual time of the event. So we got registration, we got security. You have to figure that out. Security in place, how you move people through. So if you have VIPs, if you have keynote speakers that are well known, how do you actually move them from rolling up in the limo car that picked them up from the airport to getting into the venue with their staff to the green room without being accosted by people or mobbed? And then how do you move them safely from there to the stage? Where are your security points along the way? Who's walking with them? And, we've had people get back, one year we had somebody get backstage. So, again, you're learning, hey, next time we actually have to set things up differently so that's not accessible. Right? All of these things that you really wouldn't think about if you're like, hey, I just want to bring in a big speaker, they're going to speak at my event. Well, you have to worry about safety, security, all of that. So there's a whole security plan that goes into place. So as you can tell already, number one, my handwriting is really, really messy. But number two, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the timeline of planning an event. And this is everything that goes into it. And then on top of this stuff, you have deposits, you have staff training before, you've got ushers, registration people. You got to train those people before they show up. And you don't even have any sales, like on-site sales team if you have a back-end offer or anything like that as well. So a lot goes into planning out events like this. And this is where we can really help, because Katie, being Katie, has a whole Excel document that's already pre-populated with all of this stuff. And you can just basically check off it's a event planning checklist specific to timelines and everything. So if you're planning an event, if it's your first event that you're running and you're like, oh, this sounds like a lot of work, well, we can actually just make things a whole lot easier and just give you the stuff. Now, if you're running a larger event, you may have some of the stuff. Katie's got this pretty dialed in, so she can actually walk you through, and we can supply all the checklists, all the systems behind the scenes to help things run smoothly. All right. So in a nutshell, we got the build it phase, we got sell it and do it. That's how you really want to think about your timeline for events. So you got to build the event, get all the data, like I said, very, very important step, and build the foundation of the event. Then you're going to focus on selling it, both sponsorship and ticket sales, and getting that in the door. And then the do it. This is the fulfillment, the actual on-site stuff. So registration, run of show, security, all the planning stuff that goes into events that most people don't even know about. Just like fire code stuff, fire marshal. With us, we got to install, bring in these portable, fire nozzles and everything too. And how do we put them in there? How do we make them look not like crap? How does that affect our vendor floor plan? Because now we've got this fire hose nozzle that has to be there, but now it's taking up, it would be in the middle of somebody's, but there's so much stuff that goes into this. But the key thing, if you just break down, okay, I got to build the event first, then I have to sell it, and then I have to execute on it. It just makes things so much easier. Okay, so I hope that helps. Robbie, do we have any questions on the conversation?
Just people saying thank you.
Oh, beautiful.
Great advice. I'm just answering questions.
Oh, okay. So Robbie's got it covered. He's got it covered in terms of taking care of the chat and everything. Beautiful. So yeah, take it from experience. We have as a team, we went from 0 to scaling thousands and thousands of people at our events. And we have learned things the hard way here. And also what we found is the systems that get you from 0 to, let's say, 500 people at your event are not the same processes and systems that will get you from 500 to 1,500 or 2,000 and beyond. Because generally that small event model breaks in that no man's land, 300 to 500 people, give or take. And that's where you have to, and that's where we basically come in and say, hey, listen, like we've got the sellable, scalable model. Like we'll just install into your event and then we'll help you scale up and we'll work with you as you do it. So if you're interested in that, just go to theconferenceaccelerator.com, theconferenceaccelerator.com. You can talk to one of the guys and we'll dive into, hey, what does your event look like? What are your goals with it? What's not working right? Like where can we possibly help you guys out? And then we'll build a plan together to get your event to the next level. So that's, actually, Robbie we need to get you that microphone. So people, let's turn it on. Is it available?
Sorry, I can't pronounce her name. It's Priya. I'm sorry if I can't say that. It's she wants to know, like, I am a tailor, I sell clothes, and wants to move ahead. So how?
You're a tailor, you want to sell clothes. Well, what do you think of my tie today? I'm not wearing one of my bespoke suits, but honestly, with events. So let me just break down events and the impact they've had on my life. So I used to be called what people would say is like, well, I used to call it an invisible expert. I knew what I was doing. I was proficient, but nobody really knew I existed outside of my core of customers. So probably similar to you being a tailor, right? Like you do good work, but nobody really knows who you are. You're not a person of influence. People don't want to know your opinion. The best way to build brand is through events. It's not webinars. It's not ebooks. It's events. People will come in person, right? They'll experience you live. They'll see you talking on stage. That does so much. And now, we get pitched opportunities all the time. There's partnership opportunities that come out of it. Like it's just like running my events have been totally life-changing, So for you as a tailor, there's a couple ways you could go with this, right? Building out an event. Number one, you could build an event for other tailors, right? Because I'm sure there's different challenges and pain points and problems that tailors have. You can build an event around solving those pain points. The other, and so that would help the industry. Your audience would be in industry. On the other side, for somebody, I enjoy a good suit. I drop some decent coin on the suits that I wear because they make you feel good. There's nothing that a quality bespoke suit, like you feel like $1 million when you're wearing that. It just fits like you slip on the jacket. It's like, oh, this is really good. You could build an event centered around the type of clothing that you provide. So you could run an entire event on luxury fashion, for instance, and the people attending would be your consumers who want to stay at the forefront of luxury fashion and want to understand, maybe the different fabrics. So you could bring in, Italian fabric experts. Now, I'm just making this up. We would have to do data research first, but like you could build a consumer event around that, and you are the tailor expert at the event. And guess what? There's going to be people there that will want really, really good tailoring, and then guess who's there to help them? You. That's how you leverage events to build your business. I'm glad you brought that up because events have totally changed my life, completely changed my life. So was that the last question there, Ravi?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So I hope that helps for today. The event timeline, really, really important. Maybe one of these days we'll bring Katie in and I'll put her on the hot seat in terms of the large amount of work that goes into events behind the scenes. She is the master. She's the operations director here, and she basically runs that team. And they do some really, really good work. So we go live every single Thursday for Event Domination. Today we were talking about event planning and timelines, but we talked about ticket sales, sponsorship, selecting speakers, like you name it, we cover this. So I hope you tune in next Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern. All right, I'll see you then.